Welcome to the 700 Club. Victory and nothing less. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu re-emphasized his country's commitment to crush Hamas. This came after an ambush that killed 10 Israeli soldiers.
The White House says it's not wavering in its support for Israel. And yesterday, the president met with the families of American hostages. As Chris Mitchell reports, they're hoping for a Christmas miracle.
After President Biden's comments about a change in Israel's government, the White House declared that despite its concerns, U.S. support for Israel is not diminished.
The president yesterday reflected the reality of global opinion, which also matters. Our support for Israel is not diminished. But we have had concerns, and we have expressed those concerns about the prosecution of this military campaign, even while acknowledging that it's Hamas that started this, and it's Hamas that is continuing it.
Israel's defense minister also recognized the differences with the U.S., but believes the two nations will continue to work together.
That's the key and the base. They want our success, and we are aware we must do so while taking their needs into account and without giving up on the goals of the war.
The IDF says 70 Hamas gunmen surrendered to Israeli troops at a hospital in northern Gaza. In one of the IDF's bloodiest days in Gaza Tuesday, 10 Israeli soldiers, including several commanders, died in a Hamas ambush.
Yesterday we had a very difficult day, and every day we have precious boys who fall. The true heroes of Israel. My heart and our hearts go out to both the fallen and the families. We know their lives have changed, and with that I want to say in the clearest way what I just said to the commander in the field. We continue to the end. Nothing will stop us. We will go to the end, to victory, no less than that.
With the progress in the field and the surrender of hundreds of Hamas fighters, Netanyahu says he believes Hamas is starting to break. However, in the West Bank, a wartime opinion poll released Wednesday showed Palestinian support for Hamas is rising. The poll also revealed 90% say Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas should resign. This undermines the U.S. goal of having the PA rule Gaza after the war. On Wednesday, families of Americans taken hostage by Hamas met with Biden at the White House. They expressed thanks to the president and hope that they might soon be reunited with their loved ones.
It was a terrific meeting and conversation. I think we all came away feeling that as families of hostages, of American-Israeli hostages, which are 8 out of a total of 138 hostages, we felt that, and we felt before, and we were only reinforced in seeing and believing that we could have no better friend in Washington or in the White House than President Biden himself and his administration.
We love a Christmas miracle. We would love all of our loved ones to come back and be with us for Christmas. So when you talk about the Pope, our hope is that he and others like himself will influence these people in the Middle East that are all actors in this part of getting these hostages out.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Let us continue to put pressure on Hamas. That's where the pressure properly belongs. They're the ones that started this. It was a horrific attack. And Israel is justified in defending itself and pursuing this to the end. Hamas has to stop. They have to unconditionally surrender. They have to release all of their hostages. They have to give up their arms, and they need to surrender. Well, the Netanyahu government is facing internal criticism over the October 7th attacks. New reports indicate that Israeli intelligence officials had advanced knowledge of the plan, and they dismissed it as unrealistic. Chuck Holton reports from Jerusalem on this critical failure.
October 7th, Hamas launched an attack resulting in 1,200 fatalities, marking a significant oversight by Israeli intelligence. Despite having a detailed 40-page operation plan named Jericho Wall, according to the New York Times, Israeli authorities underestimated Hamas's capabilities, dismissing their plans as overly ambitious.
Obviously, this is the worst intelligence failure in the history of the state of Israel. It's one of the worst intelligence failures, it seems, in the history of modern warfare, humanity, or states. And obviously, there will be an accounting held. But right now, Israel seems across the board overwhelmingly, sure, there are political pressures and their voices, but overall seems to be united in the understanding that right now there is an existential enemy outside trying to destroy the people of Israel, the state of Israel, the Jews.
The attack reportedly mirrored Hamas's strategic plan, a combination of rocket barrages and drones aimed at crippling security systems, along with gunmen using diverse transport methods, successfully breached Israeli defenses.
Any objective listener or observer is going to agree that, yeah, it was an intelligence failure, that the enemy could plan and organize that many thousands of fighters to breach in 30 different breach points, come through the fence, and do that kind of damage. However, yes, intelligence services collect a lot of intelligence, and it's hard to determine what is perfect and accurate intelligence versus what is conjecture.
But this isn't the first time Israel has had to overcome these challenges.
The Israelis have a long history of overestimating their capabilities against their enemies and underestimating the threat when it comes to the Arabs specifically. In both the 1967 and the 1973 wars, the Israelis almost lost their country because they didn't pay attention to the warning signs that were everywhere. And that should have served as a lesson in this war with Hamas. But unfortunately, they fell prey to the same hubris this time as well.
So yes, there might have been indications, warnings a year before. The fact is, we know this because the players involved have said so.
I had some operations orders translated. They were done by people who were Syrian, by Egyptians, and by people in the UAE. And every single one of those guys said, this operations order is the way Persian people talk. So I think a lot of this might have been planned in Iran.
The aftermath of the attack raises critical concerns in how Israel identifies and reacts to credible threats.
Israel knew about some of this information, but they considered it aspirational. When you think about it, this seemed like such an off-the-wall attack. You're using hang gliders and so on. Who would have thought of that? And who wants to be the guy that puts their career on the line and says, hey, guess what? Qassam is going to attack with hang gliders.
Before they spend any effort on deciding who to blame, however, Israel needs to win the war.
It has to go way past that. And, contra the pressure coming up from the world to create a state governed by the Palestinian Authority, which is no less genocidal, no less evil than Hamas. There needs to be a complete change in how Israel relates to those hostile populations that surround it.
Chuck Holton, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, as the story was playing, I thought of our own intelligence failure back at 9/11, where there seemed to be chatter, there seemed to be discussion, but it just seemed absolutely outrageous that people could commandeer airplanes and fly them into buildings. So you look at this and say, from a human standpoint, you can understand why you would think it was aspirational. This was just so outlandish that they didn't think it was possible. At the same time, you have to give it credibility. And so what's going to happen in this internal investigation, and where's Israel going to go with this? The larger question, and it is a much larger question, did America win 9/11? Did we win the war in Afghanistan? Did we win the war in Iraq? Have we won the war against radical terrorism? I think the answer quite clearly is no, we haven't. And so Israel can win the battle against Hamas, but has it won the peace? And what's it going to take to win the peace? To change the ideology that Palestinians are raised with, that Israel should be removed from the map, and this chant from the river to the sea. What's it going to take, and how many generations is it going to take to win the peace? And in that, what needs to be dismantled that is currently funding it? We can look at funds coming from Iran, but what about funds coming from the UN? What about funds coming from the United States of America to prop up UNRWA, to prop up the Palestinian Authority, allow them to continue to train their children and their children's children in terrorism? UNRWA had terrorists on salary. UNRWA employees were holding hostages. That means UNRWA should stop too, and we should stop funding it.
President Joe Biden faces a formal impeachment inquiry. The House narrowly approved the resolution last night in a party-line vote. Republicans say the inquiry is needed to gather evidence the president improperly benefited from family business dealings. Meanwhile, Biden's son, Hunter, likely will face a charge of contempt of Congress for refusing to testify. CBN's Mark Martin has the story.
The impeachment inquiry resolution calls for 3 House committees to continue investigating Biden. The president calls the move a baseless political stunt.
On this vote, the yeas are 221 and the nays are 212. The resolution is adopted.
The vote put the entire House Republican conference on record in support of the inquiry. Republicans are seeking to tie the president to his son Hunter's business dealings as part of the investigation.
This is an investigation of Joe Biden. Hunter Biden's a key witness because we have a simple question, and the majority of Americans have a question. What did the Bidens do to receive tens of millions of dollars from our enemies around the world?
So far, the investigation has not revealed any hard evidence to back up some GOP claims. Republicans say the inquiry will give them more tools to pursue the allegations. Democrats see the impeachment inquiry as unnecessary and politically motivated.
They have not laid a glove on President Biden, and they have no evidence of him committing any offense, much less an impeachable offense.
The president slams accusations that he benefited from his family's foreign business dealings. He released a statement saying, instead of doing anything to help make Americans' lives better, they are focused on attacking me with lies. Meanwhile, Hunter Biden defied a subpoena to testify before House lawmakers Wednesday, instead speaking out publicly on Capitol Hill, the first time since 2 criminal indictments were handed down against him.
And in the depths of my addiction, I was extremely irresponsible with my finances. But to suggest that as grounds for an impeachment inquiry is beyond the absurd. It's shameless. There is no evidence to support the allegations that my father was financially involved in my business, because it did not happen.
Hunter says he's only willing to testify in public. House Oversight Chair James Comer says he's already initiating contempt of Congress proceedings against the president's son. Comer issued a joint statement with House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan saying, "We will not provide special treatment because his last name is Biden." Hunter says his lifelong struggle with alcoholism and drug abuse shouldn't be pulled into the impeachment investigation.
They belittled my recovery, and they have tried to dehumanize me, all to embarrass and damage my father, who has devoted his entire public life to service.
Approving the months-long impeachment inquiry ensures the investigation will extend well into the 2024 presidential race. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Thank you, Mark. Turning to the economy, no news from the Federal Reserve turns out to be good news for the stock market. The Fed deciding to leave interest rates unchanged Wednesday and signaling 3 coming cuts to borrowing costs in the next year. This marks the 3rd consecutive meeting in which policymakers have chosen to hold interest rates at the current level, the highest in 22 years, as the central bank works to combat persistent inflation. The Dow closing at a record high, up more than 500 points to rise above 37,000 for the first time ever. Well, a U.S. district judge put on hold an election interference case against former President Donald Trump. Trump's legal team is pursuing claims that he's immune from prosecution for actions taken while in office. The Obama-appointed federal judge ruled special counsel Jack Smith's case against Trump cannot move forward until an appeal makes its way through the legal system. A federal appeals court has already agreed to Smith's request to fast-track the case. The Supreme Court has also indicated it will expedite a hearing. The prosecutor is concerned multiple appeals will delay a trial beyond the 2024 election. Well, we're just weeks away from the Iowa caucuses. Polls show former President Trump running away in the GOP primary and possibly even winning the general election against President Biden. CBN White House correspondent Abigail Robertson reports on what a second term for President Trump might look like.
Former President Trump is touting his plans for a second term on the campaign trail before votes are even cast. And chief among them is political payback.
They've opened up a Pandora's box, and I only can say to Joe is be very careful what you wish for.
Trump made headlines telling Sean Hannity the vision for day one of his presidency.
We love this guy. He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No, no, no, other than day one."
We're closing the border, and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
Trump describes his 2024 platform as big ideas, bold ambitions, and daring dreams.
2024 with the agenda. It is very bold and forward-looking and very patriotic.
Trump promises to rebuild the economy by making America a manufacturing superpower and energy independent.
Here's his best ammo, if you will, and it's Joe Biden. I mean, he's pretty much running against what Biden has done the last 4 years.
Trump says he will shut down Biden's border disaster with plans to deputize the National Guard to remove illegal gang members and criminals, while calling for drug smugglers and human traffickers to receive the death penalty. He also pledges to end birthright citizenship for babies born in the U.S. In regard to the former president's ongoing legal issues, so far, they've only seemed to boost his support.
Voters see themselves a bit in Donald Trump because pro-lifers have been under attack. Parents at school boards have been, conservative parents that have been speaking out at school board meetings have been under attack by the DOJ as well. So there's evidence to suggest that Trump is not the only one. If it was just Trump and everybody else was treated fairly, that'd be one thing.
Nathan Gonzalez from Inside Elections tells CBN News a second term for Trump would look much different than his first.
I think a second Trump term would be some folks taking advantage of an opportunity to drastically change the scope and the role of government, but also an opportunity for Trump to exact revenge on people who he feels have done him wrong.
And he thinks voters should pay close attention to what Trump is saying on the campaign trail.
If Trump wins, I don't think it's going to be because people were listening to everything he was saying he was doing. It will be because Biden is old, or people don't feel secure, and they want something different than Biden, not that they are for some broad Trump agenda or they are for pardoning, January 6th insurrectionists.
While right now it seems like a Trump versus Biden rematch is on the horizon, a lot could happen between now and November 2024 to shake this race up. Reporting from the White House, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Miguel Gordon, back to you.
Well, as I'm watching that, it's actually like I'm getting ready for a prize fight, and I'm hearing an announcer say, "Are you ready to rumble?" That's what 2024 is going to turn into. This is going to be a no-holds-barred election contest. Get ready. We're going to see things that I never thought we'd ever see. But we have already. I never thought I'd see January 6th. I never thought I'd see a former president come under indictment. I never thought in his term that every single member of his staff would have to hire their own attorney because of what they were all under investigation, and investigation over a phony dossier. Well, we're into brand new territory here in America. My prayer, and it is a very earnest prayer, can we please come together and realize the problems that we're facing in the world today are so great that if we continue to be divided, and here's the scripture that's haunting my prayer, a house divided cannot stand. If we continue down this polarizing path, at what point do we break apart? Let us pray for unity, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You can make us this Christmas to help those in need. Your donation to CBN this holiday season will help bring food, medicine, and the gospel message to people in need all around the world. So please call 1-800-700-7000, or you can visit cbn.com/hope. You can send your gift to Holiday of Hope, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Do it right now, 1-800-700-7000. Terry, over to you.
Well, June 2022, just last year, Holly Marie is approached by two strangers in law enforcement. They tell her news she never expected to hear. A couple was brutally murdered 40 years earlier, and she was their daughter.
Holly Marie was a baby when she vanished along with her parents. The couple, who had gotten involved with a religious cult, were later found brutally murdered. But Holly remained missing. her birth family never gave up hope. Then, more than 40 years later, with the help of persistent detectives, Holly was found alive. She shares the painful truth of discovering her past and the joy of reuniting with her biological family in her book, Finding Baby Holly.
Well, Holly Marie joins us now for the rest of the story. We welcome you to the 700 Club. It's a fascinating story of your life and the culmination happening just last year. Go back, if you will, for us to the beginning. Your parents were very young. They joined, your biological parents, they joined a cult. What happened in their lives? What was going on?
Well, they had told the biological family that they were moving to Texas for more work, for better income, better job, salary. And so when they arrived in Texas, they had an uncle that had helped them, you know, get a start. And they were able to get into a trailer. And then after their first month of being in this trailer with me, they just disappeared. The biological family said the uncle had called my biological father, Dean, had called his mother and said that the white-robed group was back in town, and that that his daughter had overheard my parents, Dean and Tina, arguing about the brothers. You know, we can't make the brothers angry. And so to them, that felt very odd because, you know, my dad had only had one younger brother. And so there wasn't a brothers to be angry at. And so it was just felt very different to them. And it happened right before they disappeared.
So they're obviously involved in a cult, and the family, through these conversations, was somewhat aware of that, of what had happened. And then the story of your adoption. I mean, you mentioned the brothers in white. 3 women in white bring you to the pastor of the church. Tell me what happened.
Arizona.
So from Texas to Arizona.
Right. And in Yuma, Arizona, it's a very nomadic place. So people travel through, not necessarily settle down and live there. And the white robe group had come to the church before asking for help, you know, in situations for food or transportation. So my dad, my adopted dad being the pastor, would help them when they would come. And this time they were coming with having a baby to take care of.
Wow. And they just left you at that place. The pastor and his wife
Yes,
adopted you.
my adopted family, yes.
So when you were growing up, you were very young at this point, a baby, really. Yes. You didn't know or wouldn't know any of the details of this. What did you ever have I mean, often when kids are adopted, they have this sense of their life not being fully complete because of what they don't know. You know, it's not that they're not happy with their adopted family, but there's like a hole in there. What was it like for you growing up?
I did feel a little different from others, especially knowing that, you know, my dad was very honest with me and told me what a special gift I was to him, and that my biological parents, they gave me up to join the religious group that he called them.
Did you have resentment in your heart at all about that, or were you able to just accept it?
You know, I did. I think because of the faith that he built me up in, that I was able to accept that fact that they had given me up to follow God, because he always told me they loved me, and that was just their life that they needed to do. It was to follow God. They had given me to him, and what a special gift I was to him.
So we're in high school, and you have an experience. What happened while you were there?
Yes. Okay. So in high school, by that time, I had some difficulties with different family dynamics. My dad had a couple of divorces, so I had family and then a sense of loss of family.
Wow.
And
on
so
top of everything.
With his third one, the third family dynamic, I wasn't ready for that. So my heart just kind of pushed them away. And so I put I kind of closed the door on that, and also closed the door on my biological family, and the fact that I knew by then that they had joined the cult, and in joining a cult, you either self-sacrifice yourself to a cult or you die because you're in the cult. And so I closed the door on my biological family. So I kind of closed the doors on my adopted and biological family and put all my hope in my ex-boyfriend and starting a new family, when I should have put my hope and trust in God for the family that he was providing me with.
But many things had happened to you at that point that would have led you down a different path. Did you think, I mean, along the way, did you ever think of trying to find your biological parents, or did you just feel like it was impossible?
You know, I really did try to find them at 11, when I was 11.
Wow.
I did try to search for them. My adopted dad took me to the hospital where I was born because we had the birth certificate, and I searched those medical records out but was denied because of my age. And so at that point in my life, I just knew, you know, God had provided me everything I needed, and I wasn't to know then, so I accepted that.
So life went on for you for a long time, and then last year happened. Tell me what happened. I mean, just a year ago, everything changed for you.
It did. Oh, my goodness.
Law enforcement officials came to your house. I mean, not something you expected. And what happened?
Right. They actually came to my work. I was working. And when they came, they were talking about this missing child. And I just thought in my heart and mind, who do I know that's missing? I don't know anybody that's missing. And they were from Texas, so I thought, I don't know anybody in Texas. And then they asked me the question, and they said, do you know anything about your biological parents?
Wow.
And I said, yes, I do. I said, I had told them that my adopted dad told me they had joined a religious group, he called it, but I know it was a cult, and that I believed that they had died in Waco.
Oh, you thought they were a part of the Davidian incident. So what did happen to your biological parents?
The investigators told me that they had died, but they were murdered.
What did that make you feel after all these years of wondering what had happened and who they were, and not just to get a closed door, but I mean a violent closed door on ever knowing them?
It was overwhelming grief and sadness for what they had to go through.
But an amazing thing happened. Their family, their biological family, had been always looking for and wondering what happened to you. They knew that your parents had disappeared, but where was the baby? So this opened the door to another whole family for you. Tell us about that.
Yes. Oh, it was an overwhelming, joyous feeling to know that I had my biological family searching, wanting me, and praying for me to be found.
Yeah. What has that been like, getting to know all these people that are related to you that you had no knowledge of before?
Oh, it's been a wonderful and an amazing experience. They are a loving and faithful family, and I can tell that through how they speak, through the memories they've shared with me, and through their prayers. And they are great prayer warriors, so it's a wonderful feeling to know that my biological and adopted families are both loving and faithful people that wanted me, prayed for me my whole life. I mean, I'm double blessed.
So, Holly, what did faith mean to you through all of this? I'm sure it came and went as you were growing up and going through all the things that you did. But right now, how does faith impact knowing all of this and just dealing with all of this?
Oh, I couldn't have gotten through this without my faith in God. There is just no way. I am so thankful to have that stability in my life.
That's for certain. You support a group called Genealogy for Justice, an organization. What is that?
Yes, this is an organization that actually evolved out of the search for me.
Really?
Yes. The genealogist Allison Peacock and my biological family formed this organization to help identify more unidentified cold cases like my parents.
Wow.
So that we could turn my parents' tragedy into miracles for other families.
Yeah. That's what God does, isn't it?
Yes, amen.
Well, the whole story, we are scratching the surface here of all that's happened to you. The whole story is in Holly's book called Finding Baby Holly, and it's available where books are sold. There's one other detail that we do need to share with you. The murder of Holly's parents remains unsolved more than 40 years on. If you have any information that you think would be helpful to the investigation, please contact the Dean and Tina Klaus tip line, and this is the email address for that: babyhollytips@oa fag.texas.gov. And you can learn more about the entire story by getting her book, Finding Baby Holly. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. What a fascinating story, and how wonderful to see how God took something that was negative and turned it into a blessing for others, and continues to.
Yes, thank you for having me. And I just want to say one more thing, if I may. I would love to urge everyone to please donate your DNA into the GEDmatch program so that investigators and genealogists can use your DNA to be able to help solve more cases. It is a passion in my heart that has grown, and that was in my grandma Donna's heart.
It's wonderful.
Welcome back to Washington for this CBN News break. The Supreme Court is once again set to weigh in on the abortion debate this upcoming term. Justices agreeing to hear a case that could limit the access to a commonly used abortion pill called mifepristone. The case centers around how the Food and Drug Administration allows the pill to be prescribed. It was approved 23 years ago for use and required an in-person prescription. But it's been available through telemedicine and by mail since 2016. This is the first abortion case the court will hear since the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. Well, as the song says, Christmas is the most wonderful time of the year, but it's also the busiest for air travel. This holiday season, passengers at the Sioux Falls Regional Airport in South Dakota are arriving to a special surprise. Members of the South Dakota Symphony Orchestra are performing for travelers this week at the airport. The Dakota String and Wind Quartets are serenading people with Christmas classics as they arrive. The group hopes to soothe busy flyers and bring joy to the season. Well, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.
No bed, no mattress, a dirt floor. When it rains, the water leaks through the holes in the roof. Every day, a mother in Kenya prayed for a decent house to live in. And here's how you answered her prayers.
Dorcas is a widow who finds work daily to earn money to feed her children. She spends hours every day fetching water and never has enough money or time left over to fix their rundown house.
When it rains, the roof and walls leak, and cold wind blows through the cracks. My daughter gets sick often. We sleep on a rug on the floor, no bed, no mattress. It's hard to work or even do chores because my back and ribs are always in pain. I looked at my house and asked God, do you really want me to live in such a house? My prayer every day is that God will give my children and me a good house to live in.
When Operation Blessing learned about the conditions Dorcas and her children were living in, we built her family a new home.
God hears and answers prayers. I love him so much. The house is warm and there is no dust either. It is really nice. My children and I are sleeping so much better now. It feels great sleeping on a mattress, in a bed. No part of my body aches anymore. We have a nice kitchen and even a water tank now. I no longer have to walk for hours to fetch water. To everyone who helped us, may God bless you. May he continue to use you to touch other people's lives. Thank you for your help.
That thank you goes to you if you're a member of the 700 Club. Just imagine Dorcas. She's praying every day. Lord, get me out of this circumstance. Allow me to have hope. Allow me to have a future. Allow me to have the dignity of my own home. You made it possible for her prayer to be answered. If you're not a member of the 700 Club, I encourage you to join with us. And if you're already a member, I encourage you to increase. There's so many needs all around the world, and one of the greatest needs is to preach the gospel to everyone, to make sure that everyone has a chance to come to the saving knowledge, and we want to do that here. We're preaching in all the major broadcast languages. We're covering the world with the gospel. We're training children through Superbook to know all the stories of the Bible. You make it all possible when you give. So if that's you, call us, 1-800-700-7000. How much is it to join? It's just $20 a month, 65 cents a day. Some can join higher at 700 Club Gold. We also have 1,000 Club. That's $1,000 a year. That breaks out to $84 a month. At whatever level, when you call, make sure you ask for Pledge Express. That's electronic monthly giving, bank doing all the work, and we can send as our gift to you monthly teaching CDs or downloads, your choice. It's all part of Pledge Express. So if you want to sign up for it, call us, 1-800-700-7000. Just say, I want to join Pledge Express. You can also go to cbn.com. When you give monthly on the internet, you automatically enroll in Pledge Express. We have a new thing where you can text to give, so you can text CBN, those letters, to 71777. And you'll get a message back that will lead you to a monthly giving page on your phone. So whatever way you want to do it right now. 1-800-700-7000.
Kicked out of his house, living in his truck, and addicted to pain pills and heroin. Brett Porter's life was out of control. He was trapped in a darkness he didn't even know existed. So after yet another jail stint, Brett prayed a prayer. Help me bring that darkness into the light.
I thought, what could one pill do? How much harm could come from one pill?
Brett Porter had it all: a close family, friends, and popularity. In college, Brett dedicated his life to Christ, and life got even better.
I was just plugged into the church and was going on mission trips and enjoying my new life in Christ.
After he graduated, Brett decided to pursue his own landscaping business full-time.
I started working more hours. I started slowly pulling away unintentionally from the church. Found myself one afternoon looking for some equipment at a family member's house, and I stumbled upon some pain pills. I remember the Spirit of the Lord telling me not to do it, and I pushed through that because I thought I knew better, so I took it. And then I found myself a couple of days later back. I enjoyed that feeling. I think it provided a form of escape for me. I quit taking their pills, but I still had the craving.
Brett contacted an old friend who was a dealer.
A couple of weeks after I took my first pill, I made a run at stopping, and I got really sick, and I had no idea what that was. He said, well, come see me, I can fix it. So I realized if I don't want to feel like this, then I need to take more pills. And they were expensive.
Brett began stealing from family members and others to support his addiction.
I was scared in some ways because I was so ashamed. God had done a major work in my life leading up to that. And so I didn't want to ruin my testimony. I still didn't want to bring it into the light for fear of judgment. I just slowly got more and more pulled in, still believing that this isn't who I am. I know I can come out of this, but I'll do it tomorrow. But tomorrow never came.
Lauren, a childhood friend, reached out to Brett.
I recognized that he needed some people in his corner, and so I just tried to step in as I could, and then from that it kind of grew into more.
Over the next 3 years, Brett was in and out of jail and rehab. After his third rehab, Brett called his dealer for more pills and instead was offered heroin.
I do remember believing in that moment because I really did hate needles so much that this will be a one-time thing. I'll get my fix and then I won't do this anymore. Nothing could have been further from the truth. At that moment, I really experienced a level of darkness that I did not know even existed. Really became a full-blown junkie overnight. I was living out of my truck. My dad had kicked me out of his house. I wasn't welcomed to family holidays, family get-togethers.
It's hard to see someone that you care about so much seemingly just walking into their destruction. I had to kind of live in that tension of knowing that I was helpless. I couldn't really help him. God was gonna have to work a miracle.
I didn't want to look at myself in the mirror. I wanted to get back to that place where I was being used by God, that I just didn't know how. My life was out of control, and so I remember calling out to God that he would please help me, basically get me out of this.
Soon after, the police showed up on his doorstep. Brett did more jail time and went back to rehab.
One of my prayers for him was that God would bring things to the light that were in the dark, and that he would truly strip away anything that needed to be stripped away so that this would be a lasting change.
I remember praying one morning and the Spirit just telling me to trust him. And it was something that I held on to, and I didn't know what the future looked like, but I knew that God loved me, that he saw me, and that if I would trust him for the next decision, that everything was going to be all right. Then he told me to go to another year-long program, and I said, what? I will do anything but that.
Brett went to a long-term faith-based rehab for the next year and worked on his relationship with God.
Slowly started surrendering things to him. Sin lost its power as I would bring it into the light. And as I would do that, I would think, oh, this isn't so bad. Why did I work this up in my head to be such a thing? And I remember clinging to a verse, Psalm 32:8. It says, I will show you and teach you in the way you should go, and I will tell you what to do with my eyes upon you. And I just gripped to that verse. When I started to really experience his love, his forgiveness, the word, and the truth of the fact that it's him that makes me clean and righteous before him, that was transforming truth for me.
Brett interned with a construction program, and afterwards he and Lauren married. Now they have 2 sons, and Brett has his own business.
Had God not intervened, Brett wouldn't be here today.
God's restored so much. The relationship with my dad and giving me a family, all the things that I never thought that I would have again, he has saw fit to bless me with those things. Whether we're all as vulnerable about our problems as we should be or not, everybody is experiencing something. There is real hope when you begin to bring things into the light and let God have control. Bringing things to the light is where true freedom is found.
I want to talk to you for just a minute about temptation. You know, Brett had really just come to know Jesus in his life and was just beginning to walk with him and learn about what it meant to be a follower of Jesus. There is an enemy of God who wants to destroy that very relationship. And so right at that moment, that little pill appeared. And you know, there was it's sort of like Jiminy Cricket and Pinocchio. There was a little voice, the Holy Spirit, who spoke to him and said, don't take that pill. And he said, I pushed through it. I pushed through the warning of God to do the thing that I wanted to do. See, temptation then becomes disobedience. And Jesus said, if you love me, you'll obey me. The reason he said that was because making choices apart from that will destroy your life. What I hope you came out of that story with is that it doesn't matter how far you've gone. You know, there's that saying, sin will take you further than you ever thought you'd go. It'll cost you more than you ever thought you'd pay, and it'll keep you longer than you ever thought you'd stay. But it's not the end of the story, because the very faith that was kindled in you long ago is there today. Sometimes it's a small little light that needs to be fanned again, but the light always wins over the darkness. You know, in the process of all of that, part of what happened with Brett was that he was filled with shame. He knew in the beginning, he knew that what he was doing was wrong. And it was always, I'm just going to fix it this way. I don't want people to know. I don't want the shame involved in this. But you see, with sin, one of the things that happens after a while, common sense blows away like the wind. And you start thinking you can fix it. You start thinking that one more thing is the thing that's going to get you out of this and nobody has to ever know. Even thinking that down to the point of using a needle. Becoming fully addicted. You know, he went through jail time. I mean, the enemy was out to destroy him. But God, you see, it's like that in every one of our lives. But God, right in the middle of our circumstances, comes roaring back in and says, I love you. Comes roaring back in, the Lion of Judah, and says, I have a plan and a purpose for your life. And it's not destruction. It's not shame. It's hope and a future. But you need to give your life to him. You need to come back to the one who created you, to the only one who will ever love you wholly and completely, no matter what. Jesus came so our sin could be forgiven, so we could be set free, and so we could have eternity with him. Don't turn down that invitation. It's free and it's for you. Today, God is saying to you, are you willing to walk away from the foolishness and the choices that you've made that have tried to destroy your life? Will you receive me? You see, it's not just a prayer, it's a relationship. And so what you're doing is you're inviting him into your life. You're giving your life to him. That's why we sing, I surrender all. It's a surrender of who you are. It's a surrender of those times of temptation in your life. It's a surrender of your plans that have taken you amok. God's got plan and purpose for your life. Why would you want anything less than that? No matter where you've been and what you've done, you can go back to that place of saying yes to Jesus. He's always there. He says in his word, I stand at the door and knock. He's talking about the door to your heart. He says, if anyone opens the door and invites me, I will come in and have fellowship with him and he with me. That's your invite today. It's an invitation to eternity with the one who loves you more than anyone else, more than anything you can imagine. Will you pray with me today? Just say yes to Jesus. Stop the craziness. Just say yes. Just say this, Jesus. I've been running around. There's discontent in my heart. I've made choices that have separated me from people I love. I have made choices that have destroyed my life in so many ways. I'm coming home to your heart today, and I'm saying, Jesus, be the Savior of my soul, the forgiver of my sin. I surrender all that I am and all that I have to you, and I ask you to make something of my life that matters for you and for your kingdom. I receive you today in Jesus' name. If that's been your prayer, call our number. We've got free information we'd love to send to you about how to follow Jesus. Here's a word from Psalms. In my distress, I prayed to the Lord, and the Lord answered me and set me free.